Hello, hello, hello. This is Truth Be Told, Dr. Kyle Dumpert.
And this is Dr. Walter Aka, and we have the pleasure of having a good friend of mine, V. Hamilton. She was an office manager. And so everybody that's been listening to the podcast knows that we've been doing this great resignation situation where we're seeing a lot of people leaving dentistry, period.
Right.
Not like we're going to another office or anything. We're just leaving dentistry, period. And so V actually did the same thing. And so she's the office manager that I kind of contacted. I said, V, tell me why you're leaving dentistry, because I truly believe that this is kind of like the 2008 situation where everybody thinks that the housing market is great, but really, Kyle and I, we'll probably have a movie sooner or later that basically talks about our, foresight that we had for dentistry. You know what I mean? And we want to know why people are leaving dentistry, what's going on.
Well,
and so V,
let's start with what got you into dentistry in the first place.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Well, I came from California. I had relocated here to Texas about 21 years ago. And when I left, I was a realtor. When I got here, my kids were so young that I'm like, hey, I need to change my career because I want to be part of my kids' lives. And with real estate, of course, on your weekends, you're going to be with clients and you're not going to have much time for family.
Right.
So at that time in my life, I decided to embark on a new career, and I just happened to stumble across a company that was looking for a manager. And I had had a little bit of management in my past. So I said, okay, but it was all in healthcare. So I said, well, healthcare can't be too different than dentistry, but it was total culture shock. But I started to get into the field, started to like it. So here I am, 20 years later, I've been in dentistry. I've been through 2 DSOs, 2 dental service organizations, 1 private practice, and that's been my life the past 20 years.
Wow. Okay. And now you decided to leave.
Yes.
Okay.
And the podcast is over. Kyle doesn't do anything. Okay. All right, go ahead. Tell us why, and we'll break it down.
Okay, so the thing is, I started off this dental career with a DSO, okay, 21 years ago. And then once I had gone to a private practice, I was afforded some flexibility. Things were a little different. Work week was a little bit shorter, and I was enjoying that life. There's a lot of things different in the private practice as opposed to the DSO world. Once I got back to the DSO world, that's fine, went to the regular work week. Hours increased quite a bit, but I was into my work at the time, so it was no big deal. But, after 9 years of being in the same position, I'm getting older, my life is changing, I'm wanting some flexibility for myself. And coming from my background of having a couple of jobs to where there were flexible type of hours that you could afford as long as the work got done, that wasn't really an option here, so, okay, it's either you're going to do it their way or you got to find a different way. That wasn't the only reason, but that was one of the pressing things, just because of where I was in my life. I wanted a little bit more flexibility with my work week, maybe 4 10s, still give the same amount of work per se, but on a different schedule.
Right.
But there was really no budget on that, from management. Additionally, there were some management changes, towards the end of my tenure that I myself, it just didn't fit my management style. There was a clash of management styles. There were some behaviors from, the people that I work with that started to change that I really was not comfortable with. And I, seeing the Great Resignation, I just had some changes within myself during the pandemic that, I just reassessed my life. What do I want? Am I happy doing what I'm doing? And do I feel like I can be utilized better in a different role? And with all of those number of things, especially with that switch in management style, it stopped me in my tracks as far as how effective I felt I could be going forward. And I know my worth, number one. Number two, I know I had more to give, but if I was going to be able to give that, it was going to definitely have to be in a different capacity and at a different company because I was just at a standstill where I was. So I had decided that I was going to leave. Did not know really at the time what I was going to do. There were some thoughts that I had on getting into HR because I just felt that, on a higher level of things, I can get behind the scenes and make a difference, at a different company. I was looking for a different culture. You know, the culture that I was a part of. Once I left, I was not, clicking with anymore. I had been used to some different cultures in the past, and I wanted to get back to that. So there were just a number of things that were going on. And so once I did leave and had the time to sit with myself, I did realize that HR was the route that I wanted to go. Employee relations happened to align for me, which was perfect for me because I was able to get behind the scenes and see how I could make a difference, as far as what can we do to keep employees? How can we keep employees happy? Where can we meet in the middle to make sure that the employer is doing for the employee what needs to be done and vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
Not just a, hey, it's my way or the highway, hit the road, let's fire them type mentality. I wanted to be more effective behind the scenes to see what we can do to value that human capital.
Right.
And I just was not getting that where I was. So in the role that I'm in now, I felt so strongly about this HR stance that I am now back in school for my master's in HR, strategic HR management and analytics, because I want to break down what the divide is between employees and employers and mend those. So I'm able to do that in my current role. I'm back with a great company with a great culture. I feel like I'm in seventh heaven right now. I'm back to the culture that I was used to when I worked in Silicon Valley back home. I am just ecstatic right now. And it's something I just have to step out on faith and do. You get in your comfort zone, and especially once you're somewhere for 9 years or in an industry for 20, you just get comfortable.
Right.
And you forget what your own dreams and goals are because you're working for somebody else's. And after a while, you just have to reassess life and know that there's other things out there.
No.
Okay.
I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Hold on for a second. You said a lot. And one thing that I want to kind of put out there, because I've been getting this feedback, Kyle, is we know that this is a one-sided situation, meaning that they're telling their story.
Right.
We don't know what the other side is.
Right.
Right. But all we can do is basically ask questions.
Right.
Right. If anybody wants to come and say, hey, I watched this episode and I don't agree, or I do agree, that's fine with us. But we have to start somewhere.
Right.
And people need to listen to both sides. And then we always say, right, there's their side, your side, and the truth. And we're trying to get to the truth as to what's happening, right? So that's something that I want to put out there. We're not perfect. We're not trying to say that this is the only solution or this is the only story that's going on. We know that there's more to the story. So everybody has to understand that. Kyle, go ahead and continue. And then I have a lot of questions because you broke this down.
I did too.
So this is the podcast. Yeah.
And this is, you brought up a word that we've mentioned on the past couple of podcasts, which is culture. Now, now that you're in human resources, you're bridging that gap between the employer and the employee. Employees, when I worked for Heartland, they tried to talk about that also in monthly meetings. With my consulting company that I work with, I set aside monthly meetings with team. We do daily meeting or morning huddles, and we do quarterly training events, also 1 or 2 day trainings. And a lot of it is based around culture. And so as somebody who is bridging that gap between employer and employee, how do you find that motivation for staff? Because culture is important to all of us. But listening on how to build culture isn't a very motivating thing for a lot of people. They don't want to put that work in to have that happier place, or they don't want to, we all struggle with communication issues or whatever the reason may be. How do you work to build that culture between the employer and the employee?
Well, it's made easier in that the company that I am with, they walk their walk. You have companies that talk about culture and they have their different mission statements and the different things that they say they're going to do, but they don't necessarily line up with their actions.
Mm-hmm.
I am in a company that actually walks the walk, so it makes my job easier. Like, they are so strong on culture. They have and without being specific, they just have different truths and ways of doing business that are so respectful of their employees. It makes it easier on me, to instill those in the employees. It's not like it's some random or some out of nowhere type of things that I will talk to these employees about. This is who we are. As far as on a day-to-day basis, what the company expects of you. You knew this before you even came on. Literally, it's in your face every day. So it's like when things are out of sorts, it's apparent. It's not like the employee has to be reeled in far, from somewhere far out, because they already know what it is. There's just random things that happen that sometimes just have to retouch on and remind them, hey, this is who we are. It's stated here. This is who we've been from the very beginning when you came in. So it's not a shock to try to pull them back in. It's just more touch points to say, hey, we're a little off here now. Let's get back to who we're supposed to be.
Right.
So it's not a big pull to have to get them to be who we're supposed to be in the culture that we're a part of.
Right.
This is just who we are.
Right.
Okay. You started off by mentioning the hours that you had to work. The difference between corporate or DSO and private practice. You said that with DSOs you were working more hours.
Right.
Can you explain the difference between, because just like with anybody, right? If you're private practice, if you're corporate, like work has to get done. And as a manager, it seems like it's not a 9 to 5 kind of situation at all. It seems like it's like you're there until it gets done. If you have to collect, from insurance, or if you have to call patients or whatever it may be, it's not a 9 to 5 at all. So I want you to break it down and explain to me what was so different between private and corporate when it came to those hours.
Well, with private practice, at least the private practice that I was a part of, it was a Monday through Thursday thing. We were off every Friday, and it was truly a 9 to 5. And the DSO that I came from, it wasn't the standard 40 hours. It was, say, a little over 45 hours a week that was expected, which is no big deal. That was in the contract when I started, so I was aware of that. But it was a mindset there that you should work as long as, you need to work to make sure this is checked off, this is checked off, and this is checked off. I don't believe in working beyond what I'm contracted to do, because at that point, I'm lowering my own pay. And that was not something that was, unknown business. I let that be known. I'm going to work these hours when it's requested of me. Otherwise, I'm lowering my pay. I wasn't made like that. And I think that was a clash, too, that I wasn't willing to work 12 or 13 hours a day to fulfill all the things that needed to be fulfilled. I just wasn't going to do that. That's not what I was getting paid for. Yeah, you're salaried and you're expected to work till whenever. But I personally am not built that way. I am not going to lower my own pay. That was just my mind shift. And not everybody is like that, and that's fine. There's people out there that will do that all day, every day. More power to them. That just was not me. So that in itself could have been a clash as well. I take full responsibility for not being a yes man. I'm not going to do all of that. I'm going to give what I'm going to give based on what our contract says, and then I'm going to go home. I was able to find my work-life balance, and I value my family, my quality time. I was not going to let my work hours take over my home life hours. That just was not me. People are built different. This is how I'm built. I feel like you can work and then go home, and your work will be there the next day, and it will get done. I just was not going to work 12 or 13 hours a day. I've been there. I've done it, with the same DSO, and I have run myself ragged in the past doing it. And after so long, I just stopped doing that. It wasn't healthy for me.
Okay, and then so the next question I have is, what if you were paid hourly? Would that have changed your behavior? Meaning that would you have worked those extra hours? Does that make sense? Now you're getting paid hourly.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so would that have done any different at all? Because
maybe an hour or two here or there, which I did already. So honestly, no. Because there were plenty of times where I was there 10 hours a day. I didn't get paid anymore, and I was still there. So yeah, if it was hourly, at least I would have felt like I was getting my worth and getting paid for it. But no, not really. That's just, I value being with my family over, spending all of my time at work. That's just it. No, it would never really made a difference, bottom line.
As an office manager, because I don't have one, what were some of your responsibilities on a day-to-day basis?
On a day-to-day basis, of course, dealing with your staff, making sure staff got their work done, your relationships with your patients, which was of the utmost importance because, patients are the way you get paid in the end. Partnership with the doctor, making sure we're on the same page, accounting responsibilities as far as paperwork, following up on claims, looking at key metrics, seeing, the different key performance indicators that you could use to shift your business in the direction you want it to go. Time, payroll, keeping track of your expenses. There's many hats you wear. Sometimes you're the IT person, you pair with IT to fix things. Sometimes you're housekeeping. A manager wears so many different hats, and that's a lot of people don't realize. It's not just, hey, there's a manager and she'll take care of when there's a problem. There's so many things beyond just problems that you deal with. You have to embark on those relationships with your staff to make sure that they want to come back to work each and every day. There's just a lot of behavioral type of situations that you have to deal with behind the scenes that people aren't aware of. Of course, partnerships with other doctors that come in. There's just a lot that takes place being an operations manager. And honestly, I enjoyed a lot of it. I enjoyed my job for many, many years. So it's a lot, but there's a lot of hats that a manager wears.
And as a manager, sorry, Walter, as a manager, because you're in charge of making sure everybody is doing their job and you're that person, for lack of a better term, looking over their shoulder, did any of that go into your decision of leaving dentistry or leaving management? Because the offices that I've been where there has been a manager or any of my other jobs, the manager doesn't really hang out in the group of employees. The manager is it's a step above. So they're, if you're going to complain about somebody, you're going to complain about your manager. So did you find that dynamic at all in any of the offices? And did that go into your decision into leaving?
Not at all.
Good.
I'm a crusader type manager. Like, I fight for my employees. My employees know that. We were a family atmosphere when I was there. So I, as well as professional, had a lot of personal relationships with my employees. So I never felt like they don't like me or, and if they did, if there was ever an issue that we had, we just show it out right then and there and talk about it. So it was never one of those things where I'm like, I can't stand these employees. I loved all of my employees. They knew that. Yeah. So no, I never felt that at all.
Good.
I loved my employees.
Okay, I got a question for you. So you talked about all the hats that you had to wear. Did you feel like you had support? And again, I talk about this with the private practice and also with the DSO, right? So I'm trying to keep it generalized so we can compare the difference. When it came to the different hats, did you think you had the support system or the support team around you so that you could do your job effectively?
For the most part, yeah. For a lot of the years I did. Up until the last few months, I absolutely did. At least for my, immediate support system.
So if the support wasn't an issue, then what was the issue that made you say, I'm done? Because if you feel supported by the team that's underneath you, then how do we get to the point where you feel overwhelmed or over exhausted? You know what I mean?
Well, there were behaviors of other people that were supposed to be a part of my support system, not necessarily my subordinates. It was just the support systems on different levels that were no longer there in that last few months, and it was a shift from what I was used to. So I was no longer comfortable.
Okay, and can we talk about the different hierarchies when it comes to DSOs versus private practice? Like the private practice, it's the dentist, and then you, right? You guys kind of like.
Right.
You at least in the end, the dentist owns the practice. You basically work with the dentist to build the practice, in private practice. Mm-hmm. And DSO, can you explain to our listeners how the hierarchy works?
Well, the practice that I was a part of ran a little bit different because we did kind of run it like a private practice for many years. So it was just a partnership between the doctor and I for a very long time. Although, there was regional management, which of course was over me. And then over regional, you have a regional partner. So there's definitely a hierarchy. But the way that we ran our business with the doctor that I worked with was very private practice, private practice like. So it felt for me, very comfortable because I had gotten used to that private practice type atmosphere. Although I was aware of the support, being offered by the DSO part of things. So there was like the clerical side, the administrative side, we did that, they paired up. So that's how it becomes, the DSO. But again, we ran the practice pretty much private, up until the last few months I was there, and that's honestly the shift that took place that kind of made me want to move on.
As a dentist owner, any of them that are listening, if you could give them one piece of advice, if they're having problems with employee turnover, or they're either looking to hire a manager, or they just had a manager leave, what one piece of advice is something that a dentist or an owner or a corporation could focus on to maybe not lose somebody like yourself with the skill level that you have?
Value your employees. Value your employees. That's it. Because there is such a loss that you will take, whether you know it or not. Turnover is a lot. It's not just cost, it's time, your productivity, it's cost of knowledge that leaves when that person leaves. We were just talking about this in school the other day, like when a person leaves, especially if they're management, you have 50% of that knowledge of your practice leaving with them.
Yeah.
for 1 year's worth, 10% for each additional year. So, hey, I was there 9 years. I took a lot of that knowledge with me. You have the potential of losing customers. You have to take into account your recruitment costs, your training costs. There's so much that you lose, when you can just try to retain, see what it is that is causing this. Why is this person leaving? You want to, once you have that person, it's easy to get a person, but it's harder to keep them.
Right.
So to keep them, you have to value that person and value that relationship and work on that relationship. Don't be so easy to just discard them. Another thing, just as far as, practices in general, if you do have somebody leave, do an exit interview and actually pay attention to what those people are saying so that you're not constantly running into the same thing over and over again. Why are people leaving? Don't just do the exit interview as an administrative task, some type of operational type of thing. Use it to effectively grow you. It may not always necessarily be the employee. It might be something that you're doing. Bridge that gap and find out what it is. Sometimes you just need to look in a mirror.
How do you get a good exit interview?
I'm not saying that facetiously. I'm not saying it like
right.
that. I'm just saying overall, any company.
Right.
Sometimes you have to figure out what it is that you may be doing that may be causing those people to leave, so that you aren't having to constantly do this.
So,
real quick,
yeah.
I want you to understand that we named the podcast "Truth Be Told" or "Truth Be Told" because we want the truth, right? Don't hold back, right?
Oh, I'm not.
Don't be honest.
People have to know. This is real stuff, and I ended up in the position that I'm in now because of my experiences. I'm totally on the other end of things because I did not want to be that employee anymore. I don't want anyone else to have to feel what I felt. So I want to fix it. And this is a capacity that gives me the chance to help fix this that's going on.
Kyle, go ahead. You got a question.
You mentioned a good way to learn is through the exit interview. What is an effective way to do an exit interview where somebody that is leaving your office, they're leaving for a reason? How do you get that information out of them when they already put in their notice? They want to, why do they want to help make this company better when they're leaving?
The best way is actually to touch bases with your employees while they're still there, right? Not to wait until they're leaving. You you should have many touch bases with your employees while they're there, so you can start to pick these things apart while they're still under your employment. But if a person has already decided to make that decision, there's variances of when I guess the best time is to try to get this information. If you have a person that's still with your company and they know that they're leaving, sometimes that's the best time to start asking the questions, because by that time they're like, I don't give a damn, I'm about to leave. Let me tell them all. If you try to reach out, many times if you try to reach out once the person's already left, they're not even going to respond. They moved on and they don't care. You didn't care about them, they don't care about you. It's their attitude. So I think catching a person, like if they give their notice, as soon as you can get that exit interview, and then get your top reasons or a multiple choice of the obvious reasons why people leave, but you also have some open-ended questions that you want to be able to leave, to let them write out, what is it? What could we have done to keep you?
Right.
What is the reason that you're leaving? Open-ended type of questions on an exit interview, I feel, are the best, because a person's able to break down literally why they are leaving. Why?
Right.
What was it? Why did you pull the trigger?
Okay. Let me ask you this, and this is kind of a broad question, but I want to really know, because I truly believe that the pandemic messed everything up, for good or bad, actually. It kind of expedited good behavior, and it expedited bad behavior. So I want to know what it looked like before the pandemic, when it came to office and being a manager, and after pandemic.
Honestly, I didn't see a vast difference. I mean, I never left. We constantly were going. From a manager standpoint, to me, it didn't look much different pre or post pandemic. It was the same
behavior not the behavior from dentists, not the behavior from your associates, because there were a lot of people that were sitting at home. They were furloughed, right? And so
right.
If you're furloughed and you come back, you feel some kind of way, right? Especially if other people kept their jobs. So there had to have been some kind of difference that you noticed.
Not really. The employees that I had that we did have to furlough, they were excited to come back. They were waiting on the word to come back. Like I said, we had a family environment, so people were happy being at work when we were at work. There was not like a lazy type of feel once they came back. Everybody just got back to work and they were doing what they used to do, because they were waiting to come back to do it. They never wanted to leave in the first place, So I was blessed enough to have that type of staff, and doctor-wise, nothing changed as far as their behaviors. Everything was the same pre and post COVID. So for me, I guess I was just one of the lucky ones that had that type of environment. So I wasn't affected in that way.
Did you hear from other managers any behavioral changes, or from doctors, from assistants, from front office?
No, not me personally. No.
Okay. Because I heard a lot from the doctor's point of view, right? I mean, Kyle, you and I, we talked so many times about all the different things that we're noticing, right? I remember going through the whole COVID shutdown, and people titling stuff emergencies that weren't truly emergencies, right? Just so that they could make it feel like, and a lot of doctors, I felt like, were kind of scared, because they were not prepared for a shutdown. They were not prepared for anything, right? And so a lot of people either became, hey, that's what it is, became angry, or just said, I'm going to make money no matter what, right? So became greedy. So those are things that I remember talking about. And I think on a podcast, Kyle, you and I talked about all those things.
Well, and there was, with the divide between hygienists and dentists, there was a growing divide, especially in the online community, where the dental hygiene associations were getting pitted against the dentist associations, which doesn't apply to all offices. I mean, there's a lot of divide online with everything. But no, I agree with you. In my personal office, everybody took it well. They were all very understanding, because we were all figuring everything out together as the rules changed.
And so what advice would you give to dentists so that they can become better managers as well, right? Because I feel like you have an office manager, but you also have a dentist that should also try to manage the office. Does that make sense? You are the one that kind of runs the brigade, right? But there's somebody above that also should know what's going on. So what advice would you give to the dentist who owns their office so that they're still kind of kept in the loop and understand how to manage people?
Well, that's kind of two different things, as far as managing people and the business, although it should mesh. I would say know your business. I was lucky enough to have a doctor that did know her business, but also know your people. Know your people. Work on those relationships. Those are so important, especially in the field of dentistry, because you're dealing with patients that are coming to you year after year, hopefully, and you want to be able to hold on to those relationships. And staff is a big part of that. Patients want to come in and see the same staff. They don't want to constantly see different faces. So, I feel if an owner knows their people and is invested in those relationships, you're going to have those people there year after year, and they're going to want to come back to work. They're going to want to put those feet on the ground every day and come back to work, because of the relationship that they have with you. I know that was a big part of why I was able to keep people. It's because I was invested in my people. I cared about my people. So work those relationships with your staff. That's what I would say. Know your business, but know your people. They're even. They're equal. You can have your business all day, every day, but if you're constantly worrying about staff, that's a whole other headache.
A lot of what you're saying is not only applicable to staff, but like you mentioned, it's applicable to your patients also. It comes down to how you treat people. And you had mentioned before the expense of losing an employee and the expense of bringing that new person in. And it's the same with your patients that may have gotten off the regular hygiene schedule or recall schedule. It's more cost effective to reach out to those pre-existing patients to try and bring them back in versus spending a lot of advertising dollars to attract new patients. It comes down to valuing what you have, valuing the people you have, taking care of not only your staff, but taking care of your patients.
Exactly. Absolutely.
How do you deal with, or how did you have to deal with letting people go? I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people are having to deal with, right? Because not everybody is a good office manager. Not everybody is a good dentist when it comes to managing the office. So, what about termination? What advice would you give to dentists about termination? Because it has to happen sooner or later. There's always one bad egg in the bunch here. So what do you do when it comes to termination? And then how do you get other people to understand that this had to happen to keep the culture? Because we've talked about culture now for 4 episodes, Kyle?
Yeah.
So how do we keep the culture looking good and get rid of the bad apples?
Well, where I came from, there was a process for that. You weren't just like, hey, this person isn't a good fit, let's get rid of them. There was what we would call performance improvement type counseling. You write out what's going wrong, what are your expectations to fix it. If it's not fixed, within this time frame, then hey, this is your first written warning, or it might be a final warning the next time we talk about this again. There has to be some communication around it before you just pull the trigger. So you give, the employee an opportunity to right whatever is going wrong. If that person is just blatantly not caring, that kind of, it's going to be a mutual dismissal because, hey, we've come to you, said what the issue is, and this is what needs to be rectified in order for us to move on together. And if the person does not do that, there's nothing else. You've been warned. We'll come together one more time, give you that final warning, but then after that, it's done. So it gives them an opportunity. It's not like you're just, hey, get out of here. This is something that I didn't have to deal with it often, thank God, but it was a process to where a person had a chance to fix it themselves so that they didn't have to be let go. You made them aware of what the differences were that weren't working out. Let's fix it. Let's come together. So I didn't have to deal with it often, but if so, that was the process.
I always I've only had to fire one person, and that was shortly after I bought my practice. And I've had 2 or 3 quit, and I think that's a great time to reflect back on what may have happened and learn about your own failures, how you failed that person, because we can train people to do anything. People are smart. If once you find out what their motivations are, if they really want to be there, if it's the right job for them, or if they need to transition into a job that better fits where their skills are. But just firing somebody, or anytime somebody quits, as an owner, as the manager, I look back and how did I fail this person? Because I want an office where that culture is there, where people don't want to leave. People want to be able to excel. And how can me or any other owner or manager figure out how to make that happen so that person can excel at their job?
Right. That's that looking in the mirror type thing I was talking about,
Yep.
right?
Right. So last thing would be, what advice would you give to any dentist that's listening, any associate that's listening, anybody that's listening, on basically how to keep the culture looking and feeling positive, and basically seeing now as an HR person, what are some of the things that we can do to improve in the dental field in general, so that we don't lose, talent like yourself or other people.
Don't forget where you came from. When we all start off, we all have this great culture, all of these things that we say that we want our business to look like, right? All the things that we say, this is what we stand for, this is what we stand for, all the statements that you made at the beginning, reflect on those often. Go back to that, because you can get comfortable as a dentist and you can grow, and you just, this isn't just dentists, but in life in general, you can forget where you come from. Never forget where you come from, and constantly reassess. Look at yourself in the mirror. Where am I? Do I like what I'm seeing right now? Do some self-reflection. Don't always just look outward, look inside, look inward. And again, those are my two pieces. Remember where you come from and self-assess. Self-assess. It's important. You can't always look outside. You got to look internally sometimes. And I just think, just as business owners in general, sometimes that just gets lost in the mix. You forget to look at self, because everybody else is the issue sometimes, in business, and that's not the case.
Yeah. It's funny, Kyle. Like, as we've done 3 or 4 episodes now, and the same thing keeps coming up. It's just being able to appreciate the people you're working with.
Right. Yep.
Absolutely.
That keeps coming up, no matter what level we talk to.
Yep.
Right? Assistants, hygienists, office managers. And I'm sure that when we talk to an associate that left, they'll say the same exact thing.
Right.
Appreciate who you have, and then make sure that you keep the people that you are, you've invested in.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't realize that you've invested time and effort and money
Yeah.
into a lot of people. So why would you then, not appreciate that?
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like this was a great conversation. Thank you.
Yes.
For
Thank you,
taking
B.
your time out of your weekend, to
Thank
kind of
you.
educate. Not at all. Kyle, do you have anything to say? Because I think I said it really nicely. So go ahead, please.
I'm not going to ruin it. I'll leave it at that. But no, thank you. Thank you for coming on and talking with us. And hopefully people are starting to understand, that are listening, that, appreciation, communication, building that culture, building that practice that is fun to go to versus something that you have to go to.
Absolutely. There it is.
Maybe I did do it better than Walter.
No, honestly, guys, thank you guys. Appreciate it as always. Everybody go enjoy your time, your weekend, and enjoy each other, and then just have fun. Right? Thank you guys.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Take care.